Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to Mules of Training by UnoGeeks. In this video, we'll see how to write data to a MySQL database table from a Mule application. In the previous video, we have seen how to read data from MySQL database, and we're going to do a write operation in this video. Okay, so in case you don't have a MySQL database installed on your machine, you can download the community edition for free. You can go to this URL and download the installer based on your operating system. Go ahead and install it. And during the installation process, in one of the screens, it will prompt you to enter a password. Please take a note of that password because you would need that to connect to a MySQL database later on. Okay. And once you have MySQL database set up, that's the only thing that you need to finish off this exercise. So once a MySQL database is set up, go ahead and create a Mule project in Anypoint Studio. So let's get started. So let's go to Anypoint Studio, create a new Mule project. Give it a name. I'm calling it a DB connector right to MySQL database Mule application. Click OK. And while this is getting created, so I have a MySQL database installed on my machine. And in this MySQL database, I have a schema called world. And in that schema, I have a table called city. And I've got few cities in this table. I've got cities. I've got few cities, but I don't have an entry for Hyderabad. Okay, so if I query the city table with for Hyderabad, I don't get a hit. So we're going to build a mule flow to insert a data into the city table, and we're going to insert a record with for city Hyderabad. Okay. So yeah, the mule flow is created. A Mule application is created and a flow with the same name has also been created. Let's drag and drop the listener. And we can give it a name. Post city. Use the path as city. Create a HTTP configuration connection. That's fine. Just go with the default values. Click OK. That's absolutely fine. And go to advanced and select the method that you want to allow. You want only post method to be allowed on this endpoint. So select that. And the display name that you use should typically be a combination of method and the endpoint. And what do I want to do here? When this mule flow will be invoked, we'll be receiving a city details as input. As in the request payload, we'll get the city details, and I want to insert a record into the city table in a MySQL database. I want to insert that record. I want to insert a record into the city table with the request payload in which I have the city details. So to do that, I'll have to add a database module first. So click on add modules, add database module to the project. And once you see it added, you will see that getting added to the folder configuration. Okay, you see a database added there. And I want to perform an insert operation on the database. We've seen how to perform a read operation on the database in the previous one. In case you want to watch that, you can go ahead, watch that video and come back to this one. And drag and drop the insert operation. You'll have to create a new connection first to connect to the MySQL database. Click on the connection, and under connection, select MySQL connection. You can configure JDBC driver. Click on configure. You can add a Maven dependency. Just go with the default options. Click on finish. Driver gets installed. You could also pick up a local driver if you have it handy. And you need to mention the host details there. Enter local host. Port is 333. 06, and the user is root. The password is it's the same password that you would have keyed in while installing the MySQL database. So enter the password that you have used while installing the MySQL database. Test the connection. Should see the confirmation soon. Okay, test connection successful. Click OK. And I want to perform an insert operation into a city table, which is in a world schema. Insert into a world schema dot city. So this is a schema name dot table name. So I've got a city table under world schema. So insert into old dot city. And I want to insert data into these columns: name, country code, district, and population. Okay, so I have those columns, and I want to insert a values, and these values I've keyed in a bind variables there, and I'll assign values to those bind variables here. So if you want to assign values to the bind variables, you can do it in this specific way. So you can read the values from the request payload that you're going to receive when this flow is invoked, and you can assign those values to the bind variables. So just in the interest of time, I have the expression ready. So I'm going to get a payload, and I'm going to get the payload, and that payload will have name, country code, and other attributes. So yeah, and you enter the details there. Okay, so in the payload, I'm going to receive a name, country code, district, and a population, and I want to insert those details into a city table. Okay, so configure that, and once you're done, you can save the configuration, save the flow. Let's see if you have to do anything else. Yeah, after this insert statement is executed, you will get back a response, and in that response, you will have the number of rows that are impacted or that are modified by this particular statement. So if you want, you can probably print that back to the user with the help of a set payload option. So you go to core options, pick up a set payload, add it into the flow, and you can probably use this option. You can say set payload, and you can use this expression which says, wherein you can print the number of rows that are inserted successfully. You can say rows inserted successfully, a static string, and you can print the value that you have on the payload. So this particular insert statement that you execute here, so this will get you back a number of affected rows, and you can print that out to the user, so that it acts as a confirmation to the user that yes, a city has indeed been inserted into the table successfully. Okay, so sometimes that might be null, so you might want to use a default value of 0 there. Okay, so set payload, let's go ahead and use the string as is. Yeah, paste in the string and save the flow, and you can go ahead and run it. Let's wait for the mule application to come up, and meanwhile, let's have the request ready in the Postman tool. Let's send in a new request, and request needs to be sent to this endpoint, a localhost 8081, because that's a port that we are listening on in this mule flow. So paste in the URL. Okay, and I want to perform a post operation here. because that's a method that we have allowed on this endpoint. And we go to a body tab, and let's pass in the city details there. I've got a sample payload here. I've got a sample payload handy just in the interest of time. So I'm passing in a JSON payload with 4 details, 4 attributes: name, country code, district, and a population. And it's a JSON format. So select a JSON, beautify it if you want, and we have a request ready to be sent out. And let's see if the Mule application is up and running or not. So you could see that the Mule application is deployed now, and which means this Mule flow is listening on port 8081, and it accepts a post request on a city now on /city endpoint, and that is what exactly doing. That is what we're doing here. We're sending in a post request on port 8081 on path /city, and we're passing in a request payload. And when we hit the send button, this Mule flow should get triggered, and this should insert the details into MySQL database. And I'm inserting data into the local MySQL database or MySQL database running on my machine, and you should see a record getting inserted here. Let's see if it all works as expected or not. Okay, let's kick off the request, and you get back. Okay, so it says that we don't have a listener for endpoint city. Let's just go ahead and see what is the endpoint that we have used. In the configuration, we've used a /city. I believe there was an additional enter symbol in the Postman tool at the end, which was sending in a request not to a /city endpoint, but there is some additional character. So let me take it off, and let's send in a request now. And you've got back a response which says rows inserted successfully 1. And if you go back to a MySQL database, let's execute the query now. You should see a city called Hyderabad in the city table, and you could see a city inserted into the MySQL database with the details that we have passed in. What's the payload that we have used? We have passed Hyderabad, India, Rangareddy, and a population 1 followed by a few zeros. And we've seen the exact same record getting inserted into a MySQL database. Okay, so this is how you can insert a data into MySQL database, or this is how you can perform read operations into a MySQL. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video, guys. In case you want to enroll in a MuleSoft training, or you want to inquire about a MuleSoft training offered by UnoGeeks, feel free to call us on this number or send a WhatsApp message. You can also send us an email on info@unogeeks.com. Thank you.